Imagine a single bullet starting a global conflict that would claim over 17 million lives. This was World War I. In the early summer of June 1914, a gunshot reverberated around the world. The echo of that gunshot would grow into a roar that would engulf the globe in a devastating war. The trigger was pulled by a Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Princip, and the bullet found its mark in the heart of the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This assassination, a direct affront to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, set off a domino effect of international consequences. The empire's retaliation against Serbia was swift and brutal, but this was not a conflict to be contained within their borders. Serbia had friends, namely Russia, who was bound by a treaty to protect its Slavic ally, and Russia's involvement pulled in its own web of alliances. On one side stood the Central Powers, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. On the other, the Allies, France, the United Kingdom, and Russia. These were just the major players, but over 32 countries would eventually be drawn into the conflict due to a tangled knot of alliances and treaties. Each of these nations had their own interests, their own reasons to join the fray, but all were caught in a web of alliances that had been spun over decades. A web that, once disturbed, set off a chain reaction that would spark a war unlike any the world had seen before. As the nations of the world lined up to pick sides, tensions rose, old rivalries flared, and the whole world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. It was a time of uncertainty, of fear, of anticipation, a time when the world seemed to stand on the brink of something vast and terrible. And so, with the world on edge, the stage was set for the Great War. The world held its breath as the first shots of World War I were fired in August 1914. A global conflict had ignited that would forever change the course of history. On one side, the Central Powers, composed of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. On the other, the Allied powers, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom, among others. The Central Powers, led by the might of Germany and Austria-Hungary, were a formidable force. Germany in particular was well prepared for war with a robust industry and a military machine that was second to none. The initial stages of the war saw them making significant advances, particularly on the Western Front against France and the United Kingdom. The Allied powers, however, were not to be underestimated. France, with its spirit of la patrie en danger, the fatherland in danger, stood firm against the German onslaught. Meanwhile, Russia, despite its internal turmoil, put up a fierce fight on the Eastern Front. The United Kingdom, with its vast empire and powerful navy, provided crucial support. The early battles were fierce and bloody, with both sides realizing that this was not going to be a quick or easy war. The Western Front saw notable battles such as the First Battle of the Marne and the Battle of the Somme, while the Eastern Front was marked by encounters like the Battle of Tannenberg and the Battle of Galicia. As the first year of the war drew to a close, both sides began to dig in, literally. The Western Front became a network of trenches stretching from the English Channel to the Swiss border. The Eastern Front, though more fluid due to its vast size, also saw its share of trench warfare. The first shots had been fired, the players were on the field, and the stage was set. The world was at war, and there would be no turning back. The war was far from over, with each side digging in for what would become a lengthy and brutal conflict. Innovations in warfare technology brought about some of the most horrific and memorable scenes from World War I. As the war progressed, both sides dug in, literally. Trench warfare became the norm on the Western Front. Miles upon miles of ditches fortified with sandbags and barbed wire became the grim homes of soldiers. These trenches, often filled with water, mud, and pests, were a far cry from the romanticized vision of war that many enlisted men had envisioned. But it wasn't just the living conditions that were shocking. The introduction of new weapons and technology forever changed the nature of warfare. One of these was the machine gun. With its rapid-fire capability, a single machine gun had the firepower of about 100 rifles. This made it a deadly tool in the defense of trenches, mowing down any attacking soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Then there were the tanks. These iron beasts, first used by the British, were designed to overcome the challenging terrain of the trenches. They were slow, cumbersome, and often broke down, but their ability to cross trenches and resist machine gun fire made them a game-changer on the battlefield. Perhaps the most terrifying innovation was chemical gas. Used by both sides, these deadly gases could silently seep into enemy trenches, causing panic and death. Soldiers had to quickly put on gas masks, a sight that has become emblematic of the horror of World War I. These new weapons and tactics led to a stalemate on the Western Front. Attacks and counterattacks resulted in a deadly tug of war, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The staggering loss of life was immense, with millions of soldiers and civilians losing their lives. This was a new kind of warfare, one marked by devastation on an unprecedented scale. In 1917, the tides of war shifted with the entrance of a new player, the United States. The world watched as America, once a spectator of this global conflict, stepped onto the battlefield. So what sparked this change? Two significant events come to mind: the sinking of the Lusitania and the Zimmermann telegram. The RMS Lusitania, a British ocean liner, was torpedoed by a German U-boat in May 1915. Among the nearly 2,000 passengers, 128 Americans lost their lives. This incident stirred profound resentment among the American public and its government against Germany, nudging the U.S. closer to war. 2 years later, another event pushed America over the edge. The Zimmermann telegram, a secret diplomatic communication issued by Germany, proposed a military alliance between Germany and Mexico. If the Central Powers won, Mexico would reclaim lost territories in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. British intelligence intercepted and deciphered the telegram, then passed it to the Americans. The revelation of this proposed alliance was a direct affront to the United States, and it was the final straw. With these events as the catalyst, the United States declared war on Germany in April 1917, joining the Allied powers. The arrival of fresh American troops and resources provided a much-needed boost to the weary Allies. The American Expeditionary Forces, led by General John J. Pershing, made a significant impact on the Western Front. American industrial strength also came into full play, supplying the Allies with much-needed materials and equipment. The entry of the United States into World War I marked a turning point in the conflict. The balance tipped in favor of the Allies, and the Central Powers began to falter under the combined might of their opponents. Although the war was far from over, the end began to seem less like an unreachable dream and more like an impending reality. With America's entry, the end of the war finally seemed within reach. In November 1918, after 4 long years of conflict, the guns of World War I finally fell silent. The signing of the armistice on November 11th marked the cessation of hostilities on the Western Front, bringing an end to the bloodshed. But the war was far from over in the political sense. The subsequent Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919, was a peace treaty between the nations involved. It was meant to secure a lasting peace by punishing Germany and setting forth the terms for reparations. However, the harsh terms and intense pressure on Germany would later contribute to the eruption of World War II, a testament to the treaty's failure to secure a lasting peace. The toll of the war was enormous. It is estimated that around 10 million soldiers lost their lives, and an even greater number of civilians perished. The war had a devastating impact on the world, decimating a generation and causing profound political shifts. In Russia, the war's strain led to the Bolshevik Revolution and the subsequent birth of the Soviet Union. In Germany, the Kaiser was ousted, and a new democratic government, the Weimar Republic, was established, though it would prove unstable. In the wake of the war, the world realized the need for a global organization that could help prevent such a catastrophe from happening again. Thus, the League of Nations was born. Despite its initial promise, the League was ultimately unable to prevent the descent into World War II, but it did lay the groundwork for its successor, the United Nations. The aftermath of World War I was a time of great change, with nations rising and falling, borders being redrawn, and societies grappling with the enormous loss of life and the horrors of modern warfare. And so the war to end all wars concluded, leaving a world forever changed.